Hello and welcome to the Michael Mama Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. The other day, a student's been a student for a long time, decades actually, and they wrote in just with a personal question. Is this still working? I think so. Okay, let me see where I'm at here. Here we go. And they were wondering about where to move. They were living in one location and they had an option of two different locations, and they were weighing the pros and cons. And they were just wondering, what I might say about it. So it really turned into this whole podcast, really. But in the moment, I'm busy, and I'm really busy. I mean, gosh, Mount Soma is really keeping us busy. But in the moment, I just said, well, go with the flow. And I thought I'd let her think about that and then respond more fully later, which I'm doing now. When I was, I was 21 years old, and I was with Maharishi in Europe at that time. And I was wondering, I knew that I wanted to just devote my life to what I'm doing, and, being with him, living my life in that direction. And, but I was, in college and doing a whole different trip. So I asked him, it's a long story short, it's a beautiful story really, but I asked him, told him the situation and the challenges, between a rock and a hard place situation I was in. And so should I go this way or that way, and this way meaning, continue with what I'm doing, or this other way, being with him. So he felt I should continue with what I was doing in the way, and I can see his hand motion just to this day, just like when I was 21 and he first did it. But he just said, go with it for a while and then branch away. And, you could take that, and this is an important point. You could take that as something that applies to that situation and then it's finished. Or, and I always did this when he spoke, you could sort of generalize it or get an insight into what goes behind making decisions like that and giving that sort of advice, and what that's all about. And it really, I'm going to try to just boil it down where I went with it, and the deeper meaning, if you will, which speaks of, karma in the hands of a master. See, everything maps onto everything else. So in a sense, even though we'll use an example here, you could map onto anything. If you're really highly intuitive, everything maps on the dust arrangement under your bed, and all knowledge is contained there. Still as abstract, but often accessed mapping is the mapping of the arrangement of the planets in the sky, and how that applies to anything. And, it's the whole field of astrology, Jyotish, But I thought today we'd use an example that I think is a beautiful example, and I've used it before. It just has to do with water and the movement of water. Let's say you want to get from point A to point B. What's the best route? Well, using the example of water, there's the there are riptides. So if you're out, say, 100 feet or 100 yards or whatever from the shore, from the beach, and you're out in the water and you get caught by a riptide, you can't just, even though you want to just get back to shore, you can't just walk straight to shore because the currents are too strong and they'll pull you under. And so what is done, what's recommended is that you walk parallel to the shore until that current, that undertow, is no longer there, and then you make your way back into the shore. And that's an example of, you can map that on, or map karma onto that. If you've got a big, powerful wave or current of karma, and you want to get from point A to point B, but it's like a riptide, you don't just put your head down and go for the shore. So that's an example of going with the flow, But now there are two important principles with karma. One of them is go with the flow, and the other is fight your karma with everything you've got. And that can sound contradictory. And it requires insight into the nature of your situation and wisdom of how both of those apply. Because really, fighting your karma with everything you've got, one interpretation that might be, okay, point A to point B, just go straight for the shore. Well, that doesn't really work. So what does fighting your karma with all you've got mean? It would mean going with the flow, following along the side until you get around the riptide, and then making your way back to the shore. Was it Siddhartha, Scotty? I can't remember where the end of the book, the guy got enlightened by watching water flow down a river, down a stream. And it's all right there. You've got one thing is eddy currents. If I remember when I was a kid, we used to have great fun with this in Ohio. When there was a heavy rain, we'd make our own little boats, or even be a little stick or whatever, and we'd throw it in the gutter along the road as it came down from up high and went all the way down the hill. We'd follow it down the hill. And sometimes that stick could get caught in an eddy current. It just goes off the side and starts spinning, and it just gets stuck. And life is like that. We can get caught in eddy currents. And even our relationship with the eddy current, could it be, oh, my life isn't moving forward? Or could it be, this is perfect, I'm here, it's good, everything's fine, just going to spin around here a little while? And so again, it takes wisdom. Which is it? What's going with the flow there, and what's fighting your karma with all you've got? And then there are rapids. There are rocks that you have to avoid as you go quickly down the river, down the stream. How do you navigate that? Going over a waterfall, or sometimes you're just really caught and you're riding the wave. And you're shooting right down the rapids there with no obstruction, and it's great. And so there you're riding a positive karmic wave, and you just ride it. And that's, see, now conceptually, okay, great. You get it. You heard what I said. That's it. But the art is how to apply it in a pragmatic way to your life. Now, I want to stay with very pragmatic, down-to-earth principles here, because number one way of dealing with your karma is proper meditation. It burns negative karmas away, But on a practical level, how do we look at our life and the situation we're in and decide what route to take? What does fighting your karma with everything you've got mean? Sometimes it can mean just hanging on and realizing that you're in an eddy current, for example, but the best way to get out of it is patience. Look for your opportunities and move when the time is right. Most of your karma, see, it's all about relationship with, another principle I teach. Most of your karma is between your ears and in your heart. It's what you think. It's how you think. It's how you evaluate something. And if that can be a karmic thing that you're getting in your own way with your own thoughts, with your own emotions, with your own feelings. And boy, is that a big one. We don't perceive, we project onto a situation. And we believe that's the truth, and that's the direction we go. And that can be an emotionally based thing, intellectually based thing. Sometimes we just get caught up in our thoughts and tie ourselves up in knots. That's karmic. And so it's accessing wisdom. It comes down to wisdom, accessing a deeper place within your own self. And that's the best way to determine the route you should take. And it's not so easy to do. We're so addicted to our thoughts and our emotions, and we so much think that's our truth, you know? But to understand this, it's a major step. If you understand this principle, it's a major step. And then it's about taking a look at your life, taking a look at your situations, and then a hard step is seeing how that applies to your life and how you can implement that in a wise way to attempt to navigate the waters of your own life in the direction you go with your life. It's not so easy to do, but it is the art of mastery of a relationship with karma that works. Anything else, Scotty?
No, it's one of those that's like, duh, but it's so hard, at the same time. Simple,
Yeah.
not easy.
See, that's the thing. So many of these principles, it's a good point, Scotty, because again, we can generalize that. It's not just about your relationship with karma and how to find your way through life. It's a duh. It's, yeah, okay, I get that. But can you do it? Are you living it? Probably not. Very few people are. We're talking about mastery here, really, in a very pragmatic sense.
Yeah,
All right.
it
Yeah.
seems almost what's happening today is that, like you were talking about, how karma really is affected by your thoughts and how you think about things, not so much you're
Yeah,
going at that
and
level.
those thoughts are your karma. So
Right.
much of what we think is our own truth is just the karma influencing our thoughts and determining our thoughts.
And is that just the preponderance of the influences or forces that are happening in the world right now? Is that causing what's happening right now? All of this, where people are clinging to these, I you know concepts or whatever
Sure. It's
going on
all
right
it's mostly karma. It's mostly karma. Uh, but the more you live in alignment with your true nature, your divinity, your inner wisdom, then it becomes less karmic and becomes more dharmic, living in harmony with natural law, living in harmony with your own nature. And what is the rise of a great civilization? The rise of a great civilization is a bunch of people who are living more and more or predominantly in harmony with their dharma, not their karma. That's the birth of great nations. And how do you know a nation is great? At least in its origin and its beginnings, it was great because it happened. Now it can decay, bad things can happen, or in the short term, there can be, a war and the bad guys win, but sooner or later that sorts itself out. Because what is really the underlying basis of it all, the foundation of who it is and what it is we are, is our dharma, is our true nature. In time, that rises to the top. It's a question of how we navigate the waters of our karma, you know.
Yeah.
Was that responsive, Scotty?
I think so. And it's like, what can we speak to about like people loosening the grips on the thoughts that are going around right now and start coming more from a place of the true nature, or in harmony with nature, or in harmony just with just universal principles.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, because there's global karma.
Yeah.
And so a lot about life is living in a manner, navigating those karmas with the artistry of a martial artist or a Aikido master or something. How do you manage that, and how do you deal with it in a generalized conceptual self? Oh, gee, is the world going down the tubes? Versus, okay, how am I going to deal with this in my life? And even in the bigger picture, I mean, we talked for sure about this is a phase transition. We're going into a golden age. And it's one thing to hear that. It's another thing for it to make sense to you in the moment. And there are many different things we've presented that I think help with that. But then do we forget it? Do we forget it? And, oh gosh, the world's going to blow up, and oh, everything's terrible, and the sky is falling. Right. So to look at what's going on in the news and in the world today in the context of that bigger picture, this is the phase transition. And in the moment of phase transition, like we said, there's turbulence, and we're seeing the turbulence. But it's a great time to stay alive, get through it, because what's coming is outstanding. It's fantastic. It's beyond imagination. And there are technologies out there. The cutting edge of the approach to health is so transformational. We do well to take a look at that and reflect on that wisely, because the time is coming when people will live, well into the hundreds, well over 100. And those technologies are blossoming now, and a lot of it is accessible now. But I hate to say it, but you're not going to get that from, somebody who's just practicing typical classical 50-year-old still being taught in the medical schools medicine. We're talking cutting edge stuff. It's the people in the PhDs really in cell biology, things like that. Those are the guys that are really in the know. And I've talked about that in the past.
But Michael, isn't it also important for us to understand that because of these thoughts, how we hold on to these things, how, I'm just talking about overall humanity, and the reason we're having some of these difficulties physically, mentally, emotionally, is the holdings and the way that we're dealing with this karma causing disease and those types of things too.
Sure. That's the whole story. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's the whole story. And it's the mastery of dealing with karma. And the flip side of that is, it's accessing your own divinity. So when we fight our karma, are we, running out of the garden, or which would be running away from whatever's out there, or are we running into the house, the home, the Om, the womb, the essence, the divinity? So we can look at it either way, can't we, Scotty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The shopping centers actually in your center,
Yeah. All right. I think that does it, huh, Scotty?
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.